on the Hawkeyes Sports Network from Learfield. Live from Nashville, Tennessee, this is the Music City Bowl Fight for Iowa podcast, presented by 988 Lifeline. 988 Lifeline. There is hope. 24/7 confidential support. Call, text, or chat 988.
Caleb Johnson breaks loose. He's at the 25-20, 15-10, 5 goal line. Touchdown! Touchdown, Iowa!
Also brought to you by Iowa HHS. Quitting vaping or smoking can be hard, but Quitline Iowa can help you quit for free with your own personal coach. Get started today. Text START to 300500. That's START to 300500. Summit Agricultural Group, committed to Iowa and adding value to Iowa products. Corn, beef, hogs, ethanol. Go Hawks! Now live from Music City and the Operaland Hotel, here's Gary Dolphin and Pat Angerer.
Hello, happy holidays from Nashville and the Music City Bowl, where the 8-4 Iowa Hawkeyes are preparing for the 9-win, 3-loss Missouri Tigers of the Southeastern Conference. The Hawkeyes qualified for a 12th consecutive bowl trip, which ties for the 7th longest streak in FBS. Iowa will be without their bell cow, though. Tailback Caleb Johnson has opted out of this game after declaring for the NFL draft. The Hawkeyes finished tied for 5th in the Big Ten with Illinois at 6-3. Missouri and 5 other teams, including Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, tied for 4th in the SEC with 5-3 marks. Missouri is led by veteran quarterback Brady Cook. The St. Louis native has thrown for 2,250 yards, 9 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. Cook has won 25 games as a starter. He's been awfully steady. The Tigers, though, will be without their top receiver, Luther Burden. But Oklahoma transfer Theo Weiss is very dangerous in the open. Both Iowa and Missouri have stout defenses. The Hawkeyes give up just 17 points and 313 yards a game. The Tigers allow 20 points and 319 total yards. These two programs were scheduled to play in the 2020 Music City Bowl, but COVID sidelined a number of Missouri players, and the game had to be canceled. An Iowa-Missouri Music City Bowl preview is coming up on this special edition of the Fight for Iowa podcast, brought to you in part by the 988 Lifeline, HHS Quitline Iowa, and by the Summit Agricultural Group. We can all help prevent suicide. There is hope with the 988 Lifeline. Call or text 988 now. Summit Agricultural Group is committed to Iowa and adding value to Iowa products, including corn, beef, hogs, and ethanol. Go Hawks! Iowa and Missouri have played each other 13 times in football, but just once since 1910. That game was in 2010 at the Insight Bowl in Tempe, a 27-24 Hawkeye victory. Marcus Coker had a pair of touchdown runs. The deciding score, though, came with 5.5 minutes remaining when Micah Hyde intercepted a Blaine Gabbert pass and raced 72 yards to the end zone. Calling the game on the Learfield Mizzou Sports Radio Network, then as now, is Missouri Sports Hall of Fame broadcaster Mike Kelly.
Well, Mike, both Iowa and Missouri are playing. I find it ironic they're playing in their 37th bowl game. They've played each other 13 times in their histories. Hawk fans love their border rival trophy games with Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. Missouri borders 8 states, including Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and 3 Big Ten footprints, including Iowa, Nebraska, and Illinois. Now, I know you can't play them all, but because you can't overload the non-conference schedule with Power 4 schools, but doggone it, 2 great fan bases that'll sell out the great city of Nashville. Why don't the Tigers and the Hawks get together more than an occasional bowl date?
Well, you know what's interesting? First of all, Dolph, it's great to see you. I mean,
thank you, bud. You
been
too.
Too long, and as you remember back, 2010, 2011, there was rumblings that Missouri may end up in the Big Ten Conference.
In the Big Ten.
Who knows what happened? Who knows if there was ever any really genuine conversations? But at the end of the day, Missouri opted to go to the SEC, which has been terrific. I'd love to see it. As you know, we played more in basketball recently than in football. I've always thought it's been It's always been a great rivalry. I remember when Steve Alford brought a team to the old Hearn Center,
Yes.
where the capacity was 13,000, and we actually had 17,000 in the building that night. I don't know if you remember, but they literally were seated with their legs over the top of the upper deck.
I do.
Yeah, fire marshal might have found that less than entertaining, but yeah, no, it'd be a great rivalry. I mean, it's certainly a great deal of respect for not only the fan base, for the obviously for the tradition of Iowa football, and certainly what Coach Ferentz has done. I mean, I always have been impressed with he and his coaching staff, and I'm glad we didn't play this game about 5 years ago during the COVID shortened season, because Missouri was in no shape to put up any kind of defensive against the Hawks that year, and ended up opting out. So glad we're finally going to play. And you're right, it'll be a fun time for both fan bases in Nashville.
This is the Music City Bowl Fight for Iowa podcast, presented by 988 Lifeline. There is hope. 24/7 confidential support. Call, text, or chat 988.
Here in Iowa, we know the value of hard work, and so does Summit Agricultural Group. We're committed to our state, adding value to what makes Iowa great: our corn, our beef, our hogs, and our ethanol. It's more than farming. It's building a better future for Iowa families. So whether you're cheering on the Hawks or working in the fields, know that Summit Agricultural Group is here, growing Iowa together. Summit Agricultural Group, rooted in Iowa, growing value.
If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, or just need someone to listen, 988 provides a direct connection to free, confidential, and compassionate support. When you call, text, or chat 988, you'll be quickly connected to trained crisis counselors who will listen to your concerns, provide support, and connect you to additional resources if needed. There is hope. You are not alone. For 24/7 support, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org.
Hey Hawkeyes, this is Coach Ferentz. We're excited to partner with Iowa Corn for another football season. And Iowa Corn is pumped up for the season with the Hawkeyes. For those of you that drive to the game, support Iowa's corn farmers by selecting unleaded 88 at the pump. It's a fuel choice that's cheaper, homegrown, and better for the planet. It's worth the hype. Get pumped up for unleaded 88. Let's go Hawks.
Hi, I'm Lucy Olson from the Iowa Hawkeye women's basketball team. Did you know that vaping can harm your lungs and impact your athletic performance, leaving you feeling gassed? On the court, my coach guides me. Off the court, let Quitline Iowa be your coach and help you quit vaping for good.
A message from Iowa HHS.
This is the Music City Bowl Fight for Iowa podcast, presented by 988 Lifeline. There is hope. 24/7 confidential support. Call, text, or chat 988.
You mentioned that 2010 Insight Bowl down in Phoenix. That was a heck of a matchup from the get-go, and two coaching legends in Kirk Ferentz and Gary Pinkel matching wits. I see a similar tight affair on the 30th, Mike, because of two outstanding defenses, first and foremost.
Corey Batoons in his first season as Missouri's defensive coordinator, he came over from South Alabama, replacing Blake Baker, who went to LSU. And really, there were some slight adjustments, but the biggest adjustment was the job that Missouri did in the portal during the offseason, bringing in plug-and-play guys and filling gaps and really using what I call free agency the way that it's supposed to be used. And, Zion Young, a transfer from Michigan State's been really good at defensive end. His backup, Eddie Kelly Jr., has been very good at defensive end. Linebacker Corey Flagg, who came in from the University of Miami, has been terrific and has become Missouri's leading tackler. And so it's been things like that that's really aided Coach Batoon. They also, for the first time under Drinkwitz's interior tackle positions, they've got 6 guys that are all between 6'2" and 6'4" that are over 300 pounds that can run laterally. And so, teams have had a hard time running the A gap against Missouri this year. And so that's been a big part of it. What do they always say? It's always about the Johnnies and Joes and not the X's and O's.
That's exactly right. The big old Blutos, as Ed Podolak would call them, in the middle. 11 wins for the Tigers a year ago, 2023, 9-3 this season. With Coach Drinkwitz style and approach to the game, Mike, what have been the common denominators for success?
I think he'd point to really Dolph. He used this phrase after they beat Ohio State a year ago in the Cotton Bowl. We have got a wilderness brotherhood approach to it. And they talk constantly about the brotherhood that exists within the locker room. I think a testimony to that is that Missouri's really only had 2 players of impact that won't play in the game that started throughout the regular season. Luther Burden, who was a preseason All-American at wide receiver, did not have the season that he'd hoped to have. He's opted out because he's entering the NFL draft as a junior. And then Armand Mimbu, who started each of the last 2 years at right tackle, also opting out for the NFL draft. And so, but, for the most part of players that play a significant amount of time, those are the only 2 players that Missouri will not have. So I think that speaks to culture. I think that speaks to again, that brotherhood that exists within the locker room. Drink is a guy that likes to be able to spread you side to side with the zone run and then take shots downfield in the passing game. Now, they've not been as effective a year ago at deep throws this year as they were a year ago. And so part of that is Brady Cook has been injured at times. He missed a game against phenomenal story against Auburn. He gets hurt. He ends up going on the first series of the game, ends up going into the locker room, eventually to the hospital across the street for an MRI. And about, a couple hours later comes back and ends up engineering a fourth quarter drive to allow Missouri to come back and beat Auburn. And so, that's kind of the legend of Brady Cook, if you will. But his injuries, had a broken hand against Alabama, has come back from that. But that's been part of the reason why Missouri's not been able to hit on some of that downfield passing game. But again, they want to spread you side to side with the zone run, and then take shots downfield.
That said, Cook has been the real deal. I mean, 25 wins as a starter, a pair of outstanding running backs behind him. Theo Weiss is closing in on 1,000 yards, receiving 55 catches. I take note. And you just talked about it. It looks like a very balanced offense, assuming the quarterback is healthy.
Yeah, and back to the transfer portal. You bring in Nate Noel and also Marcus Carroll, 2 guys that were at a lower level a year ago, but have come in and had terrific seasons running the football for Missouri. Brady Cook is really, Dolph. When I say legend, I don't mean that lightly. He has grown into a Missouri legend. Here's a kid that, they like to use the phrase true son, a Missouri kid that dreamed about playing at Missouri and then ends up going to Missouri and having a career. Well, that's Brady Cook. There are pictures of when this kid was 5 and 6 years old, standing outside the locker room, waiting for the team to arrive prior to a game. And then he eventually lives out his dream by becoming the starting quarterback at the University of Missouri. Had he not been injured, had he not been injured early in the season, he had a chance with about 5 games to play where he could have been Missouri's first 9,000-yard passer and 1,000-yard rusher. And it was within his grasp had he not gotten injured earlier in the season. So, just a dynamic kid that's just, one of those guys that you just root for, because I don't know that Missouri fans really appreciate the amount of times that he has given up his body for the success of his football team. And so just one of those kids, again, that you root for quite a bit. You mentioned Theo Weiss, a transfer from Oklahoma, now in his second year. He's been Missouri's best wide receiver throughout the entire season. When Missouri needs to make a play late in the game, for the most part, it's been Theo Weiss that's accomplished that.
Mike, last thing for you, the move to the SEC, which has been in play now for a couple of years, it would be hard to argue it was the wrong move by Mizzou. I know there was a lot of discussion about that when it first came down, when it first happened, that one of the linchpins for the Big 12 or the Big 8, and go back to the Big 6 100 years ago, was leaving. But that is the landscape of college football, college athletics, really today, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. And honestly, I don't know that we're done, with the settlement of the Hawkeyes and, perhaps the impending influx of money from private equity, if we see that happen. I just don't know really what the landscape holds moving forward, but I just have a sneaking suspicion that, there's still more adjustments that are going to be made. And do we ever end up with two, really large conferences, that control things? Who knows what's going to happen? But at the end of the day, the move's been great. Missouri's had more success, obviously, in football than they've had in basketball in the Southeastern Conference, which, is somewhat interesting when you think about when Missouri entered the SEC. Basketball was rolling at the time, but since then, Missouri struggled. Well under 500 in conference play in basketball since entering the league. But, Coach Pinkel led Missouri to back-to-back SEC championship game appearances. Drinkwitz's team has got a chance to do something that just doesn't happen very often, and has have double-digit wins in back-to-back seasons. And so it's been good for me. I think you'll appreciate this. People said, well, what do you think about the move? I said, well, how many times in one's life do you have to visit Ames, Iowa? Or Lubbock, Texas? Or Waco? And so now we get a chance to visit Gainesville and Columbia, South Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee, and obviously Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and many, many others. And so, from an old selfish broadcaster's point of view, it's been a great move.
Missouri is doing just fine in the Southeastern Conference, but who knows the direction of college football with the ever-changing conference realignment and college football playoffs. Quitting vaping or smoking can be hard, but Quitline Iowa can help you quit for free with your own personal coach. Get started today. Text START to 300-500. That's START to 300-500. We'll have updated Fight for Iowa podcasts all this week from the Music City Bowl in Nashville, sponsored by Summit Agricultural Group, HHS, Quitline Iowa, and 988 Lifeline. I'm Gary Dolphin. Thanks for tuning in. Go Hawks.
On the Hawkeyes Sports Network from Learfield, live from Nashville, Tennessee, this has been the Music City Bowl Fight for Iowa podcast, presented by 988 Lifeline. 988 Lifeline. There is hope. 24/7 confidential support. Call, text, or chat 988. Also brought to you by Iowa HHS. Quitting vaping or smoking can be hard, but Quitline Iowa can help you quit for free with your own personal coach. Get started today. Text START to 300-500. That's START to 300-500. Summit Agricultural Group, committed to Iowa and adding value to Iowa products. Corn, beef, hogs, ethanol. Go Hawks! The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.